All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this afternoon edition of the Paul Harrell program. We got a great show for you. Me, along with my co-host, Rob Spencer. We're going to break down everything that we can find surrounding these new revelations. Tulsi Gabbard declassifying documents. Now Senator Chuck Grassley declassifying that basically Hillary Clinton and Loretta Lynch were in contact with one another. She was getting briefed for campaign about what the FBI was going to do to her. I mean, so we're really dredging up old stuff here about, like, the email servers and BleachBit and wiping it like what? With a cloth? The Paul Harrell program starts right now.
The Paul Harrell program.
All right, folks, we want to remind everybody out there, make sure that you go over to our newly created X account where you can follow at Paul Talk Show. And as always, I want to welcome my co-host, Rob Spencer, is with us. Rob, take it away, sir.
Paul, it is an honor to be here as always. Had a great weekend. Lots of news happening. I mean, when you've got Trump, sharing an AI video here of Obama getting arrested by what appears to be Secret Service or FBI, which I know that I know the Secret Service is FBI, but you get what I mean. He had a lot of ruffling a lot of feathers there, and as Trump typically does, he stoked the fire of controversy, and rightfully so, in my opinion. If you are to believe Tulsi Gabbard and the intel report about this, then make the case for Obama not being arrested would be the better.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That the ball is really much in their court right now. It's fascinating stuff. Obviously, last week we were covering the lack of Jeffrey Epstein accountability. That is still, I'm not just going to ignore that hasn't happened. We've gone from seeking accountability to that, and who knows, maybe getting something with Pam Bondi filing with the court to unseal the grand jury testimony and everything like that. But it's still something that's on my mind. But the news is also a wave, and you got to ride it in waves. And we can speculate as to the timing, all of this, but it's just too fascinating to go back and think about the Russia collusion hoax. Now, much of this stuff on the right, like we already know. Look, they framed Trump for treason. Mm-hmm. All of that's come out, but to actually see it in black and white, the documents that these guys were conspiring. This is why the FBI has launched a grand conspiracy investigation against them. And the question now on everyone's minds comes to accountability. Okay, is Pam Bondi, allegedly Tulsi Gabbard is now saying whistleblowers are coming out of the woodwork with this because of this new information, and they're going to be signing affidavits, turning those over to the Department of Justice. Can you arrest a former president?
They did. Trump was arrested.
So the precedent has been set.
It's there.
And so this is the rub. Will we actually see this? Will we actually see indictments and arrests of Obama or James Comey or Clapper or Brennan or Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, all of these people, and who knows, maybe even new players that we don't even know anything about because she keeps dropping these documents. We've got text messages now, thanks to this Grassley declassifying what he does. We're going to get into that as well. But the whole thing is surreal just in terms of the administration is actually in a position to do something. And honestly, come the midterms, this needs to happen fast. This doesn't need to be some drawn-out thing.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a drip, drip, drip of information that keeps coming out. You need to strike while the iron is hot. When you basically throw a hand grenade in here, and we need to see everything that's underneath here. We don't need to have a drip, 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 because then it's like, okay, well, we heard this. And some people would say, well, this is 10 years old. This is old news. But when you have legitimate documentation of a sitting United States president, right? Because this is his lame duck session here. This is after the election, but it is before he's turned over. Mm-hmm. It's before he's turned over the keys of the White House.
Sabotage.
Right? Correct. It is, there were reports that after when Bill Clinton and Al Gore were leaving office, that they removed all of the W's from every keyboard, right? Because George W. Bush had been elected, and it was like a protest of the whole Florida, like the hanging chads and all of this stuff, right? But that is just some small pettiness. This is we conservatives, whatever it is, conservatives fully believe and realize, and everybody knows that his first term was hijacked. At least the first 2.5 years was hijacked by this Russia BS. That you are saying that the United States president, Donald Trump, who is probably the most America-loving president that we've had, at least in modern times that I can remember, right? Or at least during my lifetime, and that goes back, that's Reagan, Clinton, all of this, right? You've got the most that he is an agent of Russia, okay? Because somebody came to Trump Tower and met with Donald Trump Jr. and said they had dirt on Hillary Clinton. You had unsophisticated political newcomers, right? And that is the Trumps. We've got unsophisticated and did not realize that whole thing was a setup.
Yep.
Okay? It wasn't about adoption. Quit saying that, Donald Trump Jr. We know that that's not what it was about. Okay? But said he had dirt on Hillary Clinton. All of this was a setup. Every bit of it was a setup because the sitting United States president was ticked that his hand-picked successor didn't beat a reality TV star in the election here. And so what we've got is him saying to the intel community, I want a new intel report, right? And that's essentially what he was trying to say is like, hey, I want this to show this connection with Russia.
Yeah, Tulsi put up this, let me see if I can't find it. Where did it go? Yeah, this graphic I think is really good at kind of pointing this out here. So there was here's the creation of the Russian hoax, she writes. So the real intel assessment. So the real intel assessment says, we assess that Russia and criminal actors did not impact the recent U.S. Election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure. Russian government-affiliated actors most likely compromised an Illinois voter registration database and unsuccessfully attempted the same in other states. Election monitoring and the type of systems targeted, infrastructure not used to cast or count votes, make it highly unlikely it would have resulted in altering any state's actual vote. So you got this real intel assessment. Then Donald Trump wins. Or this happens around the same time. And then you have a December 8th meeting where the POTUS's briefing is pulled. So they basically are going to publicize, I guess, within the intel community, what we just read. They pull it. Then they've got an Obama order. IC begins outlining a new assessment that claims the election was hacked. Then we have a secret Russia meeting. Obama officials met to plan the Russia hoax. Then you had the deep state leaks. Washington Post, CIA assessment says Russia was trying to help Trump win the White House. NBC News, U.S. officials, Putin personally involved in U.S. election hack. New York Times, Russian hackers acted to aid Trump in election, U.S. says. And so it leaks to the press. They go crazy with it. Then you have this fake weaponized assessment, suppressed prior intelligence showing Russia lacked intent and capability to hack the 2016 election. Russia hoax was born, and this is why it's so problematic because they spied on his campaign. We know that they spied on a lot of people's campaigns, and then you have a situation where the will of the people, all of the Democrats, all of them saying, we care about democracy, we want to preserve democracy, and yet they clearly are not. And so also goes to show. I think this was done. One of the reasons this was done is to cover up other crimes, right? They frame him for treason,
smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, because they realize how corrupt that they've been, and that's really why they targeted General Michael Flynn, who it's conventional wisdom he knew where all the bodies were buried. This guy was deep in intelligence, and he watched all these guys do this and much worse. You have to remember, Obama was a scandal. There was plenty of scandals in Obama's administration, things like Fast and Furious, where they literally were planning false flag attacks. They were going to use weapons from gun stores on America. They were going to intentionally buy them and then make them put them at crime scenes, trying to create a false flag to where they were going to crack down on the Second Amendment along the border, which would have given them the onus to crack down on the Second Amendment nationwide. Eventually, it was this, and that's just one. I mean, there's a million of them out there. So
dropped more missiles than Trump by far, right? And deported twice as many people as Donald Trump has, illegal immigrants as Donald Trump has, but we don't hear about those things, right? We only hear about Orange Man bad, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to hear about Saint Obama,
right? And that's why it's got a lot of people wondering, like, how could this even, like, what are the logistics of this? Like, how do you go about, like, if they decide, okay, because there's going to have to be some, does Obama have immunity? I don't think so, but there were going to be people that are going to argue that. Okay, fine, whatever. But how do you go about this? How do you go about bringing these people accountable? Because it really, to me, comes down to again, I've said, if we get 3 years down the road here and none of these people are in jail, none of these people have even at least been charged and tried. I mean, what's the point of it? I mean, there's literally, at that point it's confirmed. You have a 2-tier system of justice, and we're slaves.
Yeah.
Essentially, like, we don't really control anything. And there's a lot of people that have already come to that conclusion. This is the opportunity to stop the cascading failure of confidence that every American essentially has in our institutions when it comes to this sort of thing.
Well, think about Comer, right? Comer, who is it?
Comey, right?
No, Comer. What's his name? Always the Intel committee. James Comer. Is it Comer?
Okay.
What's his name? Anyway, he's real Southern accent, and he's the one that went after the Bidens for all the, Okay,
I got you. Yeah, right here.
James Comer. Yeah.
Okay.
So James Comer. All right. So
sorry about that.
How many times have I seen James Comer on Fox News saying, well, we've uncovered these 17 shell companies, and we've uncovered all of this stuff, and I'm like, not a single solitary person has been arrested. Okay? It is, without any question, confirmed that the Bidens were as corrupt as you can be. There were shell companies. They were receiving money from foreign. That is not even up to debate. Like, even the left doesn't debate that. We realize that the Biden family received money from foreign countries. Now, you can say it's for this or that, business dealings and all of that stuff, but what business dealing did old Hunter Biden have in Ukraine? Like, how could he have ever contributed to an energy company in Ukraine enough to serve on the board and make millions of dollars? Well, his daddy was vice president at the time, and we know that stuff happens, but not a single solitary arrest has happened. You can say, I'm not going to go after Joe Biden. What about his family? Go after his family, okay? Because if those people were receiving millions of dollars, they're as guilty as he is.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Just because it's the head of the snake. So I say all that to say I'm tired of all of this. This is coming. Look, we have uncovered all of this stuff. We've uncovered this or that or this or that. Arrest somebody or shut up.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Rob. Like, I think that's just where so many people, especially in the MAGA movement, are. I mean, I said earlier today, like, if I held my breath, I'm not going to hold my breath. I would die. Yeah. I think this is my suspicion. I would die of lack of oxygen if I actually held my breath, waiting for this to happen imminently. But I think it has to, and we need to be as vocal as we possibly can everywhere out there. Where are the arrests? Where are they? I think this is great, and there's nothing wrong with us being impatient when it comes to this, because we all have a very healthy skepticism of government, especially what we went through the last 2 weeks, and we want justice. We've got to demand justice here.
Yeah, and so somebody would talk to presidential immunity there, and we're like, oh, well, you said Trump's immune, and so Obama must be immune, and you just say, okay. So what you're saying here is that Donald Trump, believing that they can have an alternate set of electors, which is actually called for in the Constitution. Whether that applied in that scenario.
Well, it was all was supposedly going to be debated in January 6th, Correct. And then the Fedsurrection happened, and everybody didn't want to challenge the election.
That's right.
We were supposed to have, like, it was wildly publicized. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to have debate, and then the false flag happened to try to kill populism and end MAGA and Trump forever. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, well, I can't challenge the election now. Look what Trump's supporters did.
Well, and there were so many, let's just be honest, they're like, well, it was no judge ever did it. I'm like, okay, what judge
never got to hear the evidence
is going to overturn, they're just going to they're going to punt the football.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to be that one, because you want to talk about that means as a federal judge or whatever, or maybe is it a district? I don't know what it would fall under there at that point. But you're talking about, you would be the most despised judge by half the country at that point if you chose to go down that route. The most despised judge either way. Okay, either you win or you lose. In both cases, you're losing, right? Because you're either, So what judge is going to do that? They're going to make sure that there's. I have no choice but to take this case, or whatever. That's what they're going to say. That standing is clear. So all of that to say, you're going to say that is the equivalent. Trump believing 100% that he had a constitutional route to make this happen, okay? So much so that he thought that Mike Pence shouldn't certify it.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying that because he was mad that he lost. Now, I'm sure that factored in. He legitimately believed that Mike Pence could refuse to certify it because of the irregularities. And in fact, those millions of people who voted for Joe Biden disappeared and didn't vote for Kamala Harris, but that's another story for a different day. I can say that you're equating Trump doing that to Obama ordering a fake intel report against the president-elect. These two things are not the same.
No.
Okay? And if that's a hill you want to die on left, then you are wrong. You are wrong, but go die on that hill.
Yeah.
But it's the wrong hill, and I will take that every day.
You mentioned Hunter Biden earlier. He's in the news. We don't have it pulled up, but he's given this interview, and it's absolutely insane, this interview that Hunter Biden is giving. He's literally saying he will invade El Salvador if he were president. Mm-hmm. By the way, people are now saying Hunter Biden may run for president. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I know. Okay. The jokes write themselves. Okay. But he said that because, Trump has this agreement with El Salvador where we're taking, violent criminals and we're shipping them to El Salvador to go into prison. Hunter Biden wants those El Salvadorian violent criminals back in America, and he says, and I would call the El Salvadoran president, and he's F this, F that. I mean, it's a very explicit interview. And he says, so you're going to send these people, you're going to send these El Salvadorians back to our country, or we're invading El Salvador.
Oh, my.
Is what he said. We're going to invade El Salvador.
Yeah.
If you don't send violent criminals back to America because Trump's a dictator or something.
One of you would be the dictator, and it sounds as if you're the prime candidate for it. But anyway, for him to be that emphatic and for him to speak in that way, to be so emphatic about what he would do as president, really lends.
Yeah, these people are crazy.
Well,
these people are absolutely crazy.
But it lends a lot of credit to our argument that either him or Jill were in charge of the White House for the last few years, and when you find out that he was in cabinet meetings, like, what the hell is Hunter Biden doing in a cabinet meeting?
That's a good
point. What is Jill Biden doing in a cabinet meeting? Mm-hmm. Is Barron Trump and Melania Trump coming to cabinet meetings? I'm pretty sure they're not, okay? Because Daddy's in charge, and no one questions whether Daddy is in charge. Now, they tried to with Elon Musk, right? They were like, President Elon and all that crap. But we know that that's not the truth. But Hunter Biden resurfacing right now and puffing up his chest of righteousness did not have that one on my bingo card.
We'll probably cover it tomorrow. I mean, he also called out George Clooney and a bunch of other Democrats, James Carville, David Axelrod, and just slamming him. Like, he went after the Democrat Party for being critical of his dad. So there's that as well. Here it is, though. Let's start with this. I guess we're 19 minutes in here. The show's already flying by. Yesterday on the Sunday show with Maria Bartiromo, this is what Tulsi Gabbard said, and Donald Trump putting this on his Truth Social, highlighting this quote. It's worse than even politicized of intelligence. It was manufactured intelligence that sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was undermining President Trump. The words treason have been floated around, or treasonous activity by Tulsi as well. Listen to this.
No question in my mind that this intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered be published, which contained a manufactured intelligence document. It's worse than even politicization of intelligence. It was manufactured intelligence that sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was undermining President Trump's presidency and subverting the will of the American people. So yes, next week we will be releasing more detailed information about how exactly this took place and the extent to which this information was sought to be hidden from the American people, hidden from officials who would be in a position to do something about it. And that's really the point here that I think is most important, Maria, and you said it in your opening. Accountability is essential for the future of our country, for the American people to have any sense of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. Accountability, action, prosecution, indictments for those who are responsible for trying to steal our democracy is essential for us to make sure that this never happens to our country again.
The basic, like these documents are out there, and so no longer does Obama have plausible deniability.
No,
so much of what goes on in a presidential administration is to allow the president to still have plausible deniability. That is 100% now gone when it comes to this issue.
Yeah, because they will always, Obama was a master at not speaking in absolutes. He would just say, we're making the effort to do such and such, as opposed to we are doing this, right? Okay, he always spoke in generalities there. And this,
it's funny you bring that up. I mean, I don't know if you see what's on the page here. So this is 8 days after Obama received the report that Russia had no effect. So 8 days after he got the report and then had it rewritten, he went out to the media and he said this.
Clinton lose because of the hacking?
I'm going to let all the political pundits in this town,
to your point, Rob,
have a long discussion about what happened in the election. It was a fascinating election, so I'm sure there are going to be a lot of books written about it. We will provide evidence that we can safely provide that does not compromise sources and methods. But I'll be honest with you, when you're talking about cybersecurity, a lot of it is classified, and we're not going to provide it because the way we catch folks is by knowing certain things about them that they may not want us to know. And if we're going to monitor this stuff effectively going forward, we don't want them to know that we know.
Innuendo. There's no evidence.
So this is one of those situations where, unless the American people genuinely think that the professionals in the CIA, the FBI, our entire intelligence infrastructure, many of whom, by the way, served in previous administrations and who are Republicans, are less trustworthy than the Russians, then people should pay attention to what our intelligence agencies say. What I worry about more than anything is the degree to which, because of the fierceness of the partisan battle, you've started to see certain folks in the Republican Party and Republican voters suddenly finding a government and individuals who stand contrary to everything that we stand for. As
all right, I can't go anymore. But to your point,
go ahead.
Well, he's just essentially he's starting the psyop, but
Yeah.
But we're not going to release the evidence because we don't want to compromise. But there was no. He's not releasing the evidence because there is no evidence.
Well, there's none. But he said he's okay. First of all, he's saying a lot without saying much at all.
Yeah. I'm kind of like have PTSD from the Obama administration. Do you kind of feel that way?
Yeah.
Because everybody was like versus George W. Bush, who didn't speak very well in public, and then everyone was like, "Oh, Obama, he speaks so well. He speaks so well." And yet you go back and you listen to him, and he's communicating nothing
in Morse code almost,
and
know?
and it's taking him forever to say,
he's so measured. I think that's where Kamala. I mean, well, she's worse because at least he will make a point.
Yeah.
There, and the point was, okay, we're not going to release this stuff, but so that we can catch them next time. Okay. Now this is the first time I've ever seen this video. But I'm just telling you what I just heard in that, 2 minutes? Mm-hmm. We're not going to release this information so that we can catch them next time. But if you're going to believe Russia or you're going to believe our intel community, some of which who are Republicans, then basically that's up to you and your tinfoil wearing
hat. You're a traitor.
Hat.
You're going to side with the Russians over there. And by the way, this is back when so many people think about this. This is back when so many Americans had full confidence in our intel agencies.
Oh gosh.
I mean, they believe the CIA. They believe the FBI.
They feel as if they hadn't betrayed us at that point.
Yep.
To not to the level of that it has been now.
Yes.
Especially, I think the biggest thing was the 51 intelligence agents.
Yeah.
I think we all agree that. That was once we saw, was it Hunter Biden? But there were some others that were requesting the 51 intelligence agents write that up,
soliciting them. Hey, we want to give Biden a good talking point.
That's right. Yeah, to counteract what Trump is going to say in this debate.
About the laptop. Yeah. The laptop from hell.
Right. And so what we saw is, okay, so 51 people said that this was Russian disinformation, and we found out that no, coked out Hunter Biden took his laptop to a place in, what was it, Rhode Island or what? I can't even remember what state. It might have been in Delaware. I don't, but anyway, he's coked out and he takes his laptop in there, and there's all kinds of pictures of him doing heroin and with prostitutes and all of this stuff, and he's needing it repaired. And you find out that it's not Russian disinformation. It's Hunter Biden, on drugs and,
Well, it's a blackmail operation. I mean, I know we keep coming back to that, but I mean, what else could you call it? He's got all this stuff out there. How many countries had access to this before?
Well, the dude didn't pick it. I mean, the dude didn't pick up a laptop that has crimes on it. Like this, he's got it's like all of these ridiculous, whatever you want to call them, kids, people that are into like child pornography and all this stuff or whatever. There's a new term for it, CSAM or child sexual abuse materials, whatever.
Okay.
And let's just say that they got a laptop full of this stuff and they take it to the laptop repair shop with evidence of all this crimes. That's, of course, what Hunter Biden was doing was not nearly as bad as that. But I'm saying it's the same equivalent in terms of you're showing all of these crimes, and you're taking it in, and then you want to blame Russia because you were too coked out to pick it up. And so I think that's where most Americans lost, or at least all conservatives lost any sort of a trust in the intel community. They talk about the intel community.
Well, there was a lot that lost it because of Devin Nunes and people like Kash Patel, exposing Adam Schiff. But to your point,
well, that and Hillary with the the FISA courts, all of this.
And then you could even go back to Benghazi. Anyway, it's been a slow drip where now so many people we don't trust these guys.
No,
and these are the guys that were to Obama's point. These are guys who've been running things in both Republican and Democrat administrations. And guess what? That is the problem.
Correct.
You know what that means? That means nothing really changes.
Yep.
That means the uniparty goes on and they just protect each other. And just like Jacob Holloway sat right here in this chair and said, effectively, they love to blackmail themselves. They love to blackmail the world. They have blackmail on everybody, and it keeps them in power because that keeps them accountable so where no one really truly steps out of their lane.
Sure.
So we have this other clip here of James Comey. I'm not going to play it, but he basically said the same thing. But this is the clip that I wanted to get to. This is the clip that I didn't get to because I think it's going to me, it leads in an interesting discussion. After the 2016 election, the late Senator John McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham and Amy Klobuchar traveled to Ukraine. And after the trip, they held a press conference and declared that Russia attacked the USA by hacking the 2016 election.
Oh my gosh.
It was all lies. We all know it was lies. But why are they doing this? Why did they say this? Let's listen to it, and then we'll talk about it.
We're going to go back and tell our colleagues what Russia's up to in the Baltics, what they're doing in the Ukraine. We're going to get briefed about Georgia. We hope to make 2017 a year of offense. We believe that Putin has hacked into our elections in America, that he's trying to undermine democracy all over the world, and it's time for new sanctions to hit him hard as an individual, his energy sector, his banking sector. It is time to push back against Putin, but be a better friend to our allies over here, including Georgia.
This is a very important trip. We just left Ukraine, where we've seen firsthand what happens when Russia crosses over into a country's independence, and we saw it in our own election with the attempt to influence our election.
We will be working for much tougher sanctions against Russia. They attacked the United States of America. The hacking was an attack, and we should be treated as such, and we think their financial institutions and other aspects of the Russian economy should be addressed, and we will strongly urge our colleagues to enact more meaningful and stronger sanctions against Russia because of their attack on the United States of America.
So do you notice anything there, Rob, about this narrative now that we know all of it was fake and it was a psyop, and you'll never convince me that Lindsey Graham didn't know it was a lie.
Oh, gosh.
You'll never convince me that John McCain didn't know it was a lie. I'll never believe that they weren't knowingly lying to the American public for geopolitical reasons or for neocon reasons or whatever. How useful has that narrative been? Specifically, the psyop starts the narrative that Russia is the greatest threat, not China, but Russia is the greatest threat to America, and that Putin is this new global dictator.
Leading up to the 2016 election, do you remember who people talked about the most as the most imminent threat to the United States?
I guess it would have been Vladimir Putin. I mean,
there were some subtle mentions to him, but all I remember hearing about was North Korea.
Oh yeah. That's
So
what it was.
Kim,
It was like Obama even told Trump, "You're going to have to go to war with North Korea in the first term."
Yeah, and Trump's, remember his response to him is like, "Well, have you called him?" He's like, "Well, no, I haven't called him." He's like, "Well, what do you mean?"
Yeah.
What do you mean? And they had a tumultuous relationship at first, calling him Rocket Man and all of that stuff, right? But then they had that iconic meeting, and I think that the majority of us conservatives sort of envision that or hope for that with Vladimir Putin, that there can be this meeting. I believe that Putin respects Trump. Okay, I don't think he likes him. As a matter of fact, I know he doesn't like him, because you can tell in the push to have a Democrat win. Like he came out and said Kamala Harris should win, right? Putin did. But at the same time, they have effectively made Putin out to be, and I believe he is shrewd, and I believe he's had people murdered, but I'm sure the United States has too.
That's what heads of state do.
That's what they do.
Heads of state murder other people.
That's right.
Just a fact.
Yes, that is exactly right. And so, but they've effectively created this villain, the all-time. Who was the villain in Avengers? What was his name?
Thanos.
Thanos. Yes, right. They're trying to make Putin out to be Thanos at this point, and
they have. So that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I find this to be, I can't say it's a direct correlation. It's not directly related, but this lie that Obama started and his administration started, there are now, according to reports, 1 million dead Russians and Ukrainians. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about 2022. Think about Vladimir Putin invades, and all the stories we get: unprovoked invasion, the West, MI6, all of them. This was unprovoked. It wasn't unprovoked. It was provoked. Mm-hmm. It's been many years coming. Ukraine's been shelling and murdering in the Donbass for 10 years, since 2014. And, of course, none of us ever heard any of that.
About that.
But you go back and you look in 2016, you look at that clip, McCain, Klobuchar, and Lindsey Graham, and they're putting forth this narrative that brings up these ideas of the Soviet Union, the 1980s, Red Dawn, Rocky number 4,
yeah,
right? And that you cannot tell me that PSYOP isn't used to create the movement to where now we're going to fund Ukraine, a war they can't win and they never could have won, but it certainly prolonged it by giving them all this money to launder and all these weapons, and now there are 1 million people dead. And I haven't heard anybody say that. Like this isn't just, yes, it's treason, but it's not just treason that has impacts on just the United States of America. Look at where it got us.
Right.
I think you can also say that if Donald Trump, if they had not tried to frame him for treason and did all this fake intel, he would have easily won in 2020. I think if you get control of the intel agencies, there's a good chance that the COVID situation is not at all. It might not have ever happened if you go back and look at what we now know about China and Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and that whole situation. So I don't know. I don't hear anyone talking about it. And the most ironic thing, and I want to try to pull this up because I meant to pull it up. The most ironic thing about all of it is that in 2012, Mitt Romney was running against President Barack Obama in 2012. And what was Romney saying at the foreign policy debate? He was saying Russia, 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 Russia. And Obama looked at Romney and said, Romney, the 1980s called and they want their foreign policy back. And so the guy that said that to Mitt Romney goes on to create
4 years later
a Russia, Russia, Russia hoax to blame on Donald Trump. You can't make this crap up, man.
Well, it goes to everything that we know as a society, that we are, because we are a polarized, there are two sides of this aisle, and there are very few. Now, they talk about the independents, like, oh, I'm an independent. I'm like, okay, you mean to tell me that you could have voted for either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Like, that's where you were, right, in your opinion of things, right? Okay, I don't believe that. So we're a polarized country right now. And so what happens? Okay, right now everyone is talking about, on X and all of this, that, oh, Trump is in these Epstein's files because he's a sexual predator. Okay, have we talked about Tara Reid? Have you talked about Tara Reid, Democrat? Have you talked about Joe Biden forcibly backing a woman up into a corner and sexually assaulting her by putting his hands down her upper skirt or all of that stuff? Have you talked about that? No, you haven't, because that doesn't fit your narrative whatsoever. And that one was a confirmed. This is not her.
She fled to Russia actually.
She feared for her life. Yeah, because she was speaking out against a powerful man who later became president. Right. So that's where we are with things. So it didn't fit. It didn't fit him in this clip that we're about to see. It didn't fit what Obama needed at that moment. He used it as a slam. Yeah. But 4 years later,
listen to this.
This fits me.
This is crazy. Listen to this clip. I went and pulled it. Here it is.
Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back, because the Cold War has been over for 20 years. But, Governor, when it comes to our foreign policy, you seem to want to import the foreign policies of the 1980s, just like the social policies of the 1950s and the economic policies of the 1920s. Governor,
I have to give it, that's a pretty good slam,
And at the time, people were like, oh, I mean, the left was like, this is, you're
he
exactly
was ready for
right.
it.
Yeah.
He was ready for it because he was ready for him to say Russia. But Obama, being a skilled debater there.
You said Russia's our chief foreign policy. But what does it say? Because we know Obama's a liar. We know he created the Russia
I don't know that
hoax.
Romney's not a liar.
But you look at Romney, what was Romney doing? He was essentially pushing the same thing that Obama would push 4 years later. Yeah. So the whole thing was an act.
Swamp.
The neocons, they wanted a war with Syria. Mm-hmm. They wanted to fight the Russians. This is the thing people don't understand. I knew when I was covering this on radio in 2016, based on the debate between the debates between Clinton and Trump, that if Hillary Clinton won, we were going to war in Syria and we were going to fight the Russians in a proxy war in Syria.
Yeah,
that much was clear because it almost happened in Obama's administration. when Assad gassed his own people. And then they called that war off because the Russians actually proved that the sarin gas came from Turkey via the United Kingdom. They had, it's a very complicated thing, but Seymour Hersh wrote a story about it called The Red Line and the Rat Line, and it's extremely good, and it's not disputed, I don't think. But anyway, we were going to go to war. We were going to have a proxy war, so think about that. And then Trump wins, and so what do? They blame the Russians because the Russians don't want to fight a proxy war with the United States, and yet we end up fighting a proxy war as soon as Biden gets in there. What? Not a proxy war in Syria this time. It's a proxy war in Ukraine. That's now the goal. So you can see that Trump's 4 years was a little hiccup on the radar for them, and then once they got back in power, the war machine turned on all over again.
Hating the Russians is as American as apple pie, as they say. Because look, is it the theme of half of the James Bond movies? When you depict a terrorist, a lot of times in modern movies, or at least over the last 40 or 50 years, the Russians are the bad guys, right? They're always that's a terrible Russian accent.
No. It is fun. I mean, it's it's part of it to kind of be like they're our chief adversary of the Cold War. You had that one show on FX several years ago called The Americans. Remember? Did you ever watch that?
I never watched it. I've heard of it.
Oh my goodness, it was incredible.
It was always Russians. Bad guys.
They were a family of Russians that were sent here to be like a normal American family, but spy for the Russians during the Reagan administration.
But listeners. We are not sitting here defending Russia. We are not trying to sit here and say Russia's great, because when you see them basically anytime that they can take an American into custody, they're using that as leverage to get some known terrorist out of that
in
happens.
Prison. That's just normal.
That happens. But we do the same thing.
Yeah, we do the same thing, and the Trump administration wants to normalize relations with Russia, so they say, but we can't get this war handled. And so I'm going to kind of connect the dots here because it's just curious to me. The Last Refuge or Conservative Treehouse, they posted something last week, and I think we might have covered it briefly, or maybe I said this, but basically, like Trump and Putin have these good phone calls. Trump comes out, says phone call was great, makes a post. Even Vladimir Putin goes out and says, "Yeah, it was good. We're good to go." But if you're Vladimir Putin and you look across the United States, I mean, I don't know of anybody that says Vladimir Putin does not have total control over his intel agencies. And the time that he did almost lose control, where there was that little attempted coup against him, that guy died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
So say what you want to. I don't know of anybody out there that says, now I could be wrong, but I don't know anybody out there that doesn't think Vladimir Putin has absolute control over his country, military, and specifically intel agencies.
Yeah.
You cannot say that for Donald Trump. And so anything Trump says, the question is, can Vladimir Putin even trust it to even get to peace in this war when you still have Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Obama, Hillary have done all of this stuff? Putin knows it. Trump knows it. Everybody knows it. And so I am wondering, and this may be too big of a pill of optimism to swallow, but I'm wondering if we are not about to see arrests fairly soon in order to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. Seriously, because at some point trust has got to come in here, and the intel community in this country is out of control.
Yeah. It is. They are above the president in their mind, and honestly, who can
Until
argue
you
with
put
them?
people in jail, they are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Which is why they don't want Tulsi Gabbard in charge.
That's right.
That is why they don't want Tulsi in charge. And we've even got a story where you'd mentioned Tom Cotton, who is one of our Arkansas senators.
Let's get right
here,
to it.
Right. I think this is a good segue into: are you on the side of the Intel community? And what the hell does that mean? The Intel community.
Well,
yes.
The community, and they do this too. Like, you very rarely hear stories.
Yeah.
Let me get on a soapbox just for a second, brief soapbox. You very rarely hear stories about the Christian community. Okay, you'll hear about Christian something else, but they're not going to call Christians a community if they're writing about Christians mainstream media.
Right.
But you will hear about the LGBT community.
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 They're all together.
It's all community. So
Yeah.
a community is it's a word that they use to soften the blow. That's why I call them the intel oligarchy, because that's really, I think, the best. And I was using that before the left started saying Trump was, and Elon Musk was all about oligarchy.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I will tell you
I'm a little
this.
bitter about that.
This is not what we're going to talk about, but I'll tell you that I know a lot of L's and G's who are not down with the T's.
I know. I know. We've talked about that before. I was just making a, the language
so to call
matters.
them but to call them a community, right? Is false.
Yeah.
Because they are not like, whoa, wait a minute, don't lump me in there with
somebody
these.
better call the Associated Press.
We're trying to
let them know.
We're trying to have. They're trying to bring in maps, minor attracted persons or whatever the heck that is. Like, don't church it up. They're pedophiles, man.
I know.
Okay. So don't be bringing them in there. I just happen to be a woman who cares for other women. Like, I mean, don't be lumping me in there with all these. So there's no community there, which it also goes to intel community. Like, you've got a few people there who think that they're in charge, and there's probably some lower level people. They're like, wait a minute, whoa, that's not what the intel says. That's not what this says.
She claims now there's whistleblowers coming forward that are upset because obviously they compartmentalize it. Like your average staffer thought, oh my gosh, the Russians hacked and Trump, Trump's a Russian. Okay, so Steve Bannon tweeted this out. Nailed. Tom Cotton attempts to shut down grand criminal conspiracy investigation by crushing Tulsi, handing over resources to CIA, FBI. Now, it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. I like Steve Bannon, but it's a little bit.
You think he's oversimplifying it?
It's a little bit more nuanced than that, because if you just do a quick Google search, Tom Cotton is credited with reviving Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, leading to her confirmation.
Okay.
Which is not surprising if you think about the fact that, in his home state of Arkansas, my home state, your home state, like, we all wanted what Trump wanted. If Trump wanted Tulsi, we were giving him the benefit of the doubt. The guy got shot. Like, who do you want as your cabinet? Like, we're going to support that.
Sure.
Especially Tulsi Gabbard. I supported her because Tulsi Gabbard is anti-neocon and anti-war.
Right.
And so Tom Cotton's not. Tom Cotton very much, he's going to say something kind of contrary to that, but he's very much on board with the neocon foreign policy. I don't think anybody can even dispute that at this point.
I know.
It just is what it is.
It's just disappointing, too, though.
So the conservative treehouse is what Steve Bannon links to here. And this is Sundance writing, Counterattack, New Intelligence Authorization Act seeks to curb the power of DNI.
And he authored this act?
He is the head of the Senate Intel Committee.
Yes.
And so I don't know if he authored it, but some staffers that work for him would have been in charge of writing this bill.
Well, I mean, but if a bill, there's always
got to have something.
Yeah, it's got to have somebody on it, and if it's him, okay.
Well, let me see. This is the link. Let me see what's the link say here. Sponsored by Senator Tom Cotton.
Yeah,
okay, so to your point.
Baby.
So to your point, this is what it is. Sundance writes. I'm sorry that let me zoom out a little bit so we can actually get a full headline here. There we go. All right. The response from Chairman Tom Cotton and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence to the action of DNI Tulsi Gabbard was predictable. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence has now framed the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2026 to modify, quote, responsibilities and authorities of the Director of National Intelligence. He writes, we knew this was coming. The intel community does not like rogue actors amid their ranks, especially if those people have cross-silo access. The silo system is designed to protect the deep state. Any entity who can cross-reference the inserted information becomes a risk to the enterprise.
Sure.
Senator Cotton cannot directly oppose. Listen, this is my key how it's nuanced. Okay. Senator Cotton cannot directly oppose Tulsi Gabbard. Although with you making me click that link, I don't see how you can actually argue that he's not directly opposing her.
He's definitely opposing her authority.
Senator Cotton cannot directly oppose Tulsi Gabbard without exposing himself. Thus, someone, not the SSCI, writes the legislative changes to the intelligence community rules and procedures, and Tom Cotton simply advances them, but his name is still on the piece of legislation. Yeah. And so this is how he said. Now, to be clear, Tulsi Gabbard didn't start declassifying this stuff to the public until a couple of days ago. Mm-hmm. This was a tweet from Senator Cotton on June 27th. But I would imagine she was keeping them abreast about what she was about to do. I would imagine they didn't just find out that this stuff was coming immediately.
Of all places, I would assume the Senate Intel Committee, or that's what he chairs, right? The Senate,
it's powerful.
Right, and then you've got the House Intel Committee. So I would assume that those,
which is chaired by another Arkansas Republican Rick Crawford.
Rick Crawford.
You and I's actual representative.
Yes, he is our representative for our area, and so
that's wild. Actually,
yeah,
those are two of the most powerful committees.
Yes, and you have two Arkansans
as the chairman.
Correct. Yes.
I'm just making note of that. That's pretty incredible.
So I'm very confused at what their actual goal is. Are they trying to take the ability for Tulsi Gabbard to basically, what do you want to call it? Air the dirty laundry out, or what are they hoping to accomplish with this?
They're wanting. They don't want different intel takes. Okay, they want whatever the CIA is feeding them to be the only take. They don't want any counter, or whatever's elevated, right? So she's got access to it all.
Sure.
And additionally, so he writes, additionally, Chairman Cotton does not want the DNI to investigate or generate its own intelligence. Cotton demands that the ODNI just accept and regurgitate the intelligence Tulsi Gabbard would be given by other agencies. No independent review of analysis permitted.
No, thank you.
So Tulsi can't look at what she's being given, maybe even look at hypocrisies or questions or this doesn't smell right, and create her own assessment based on that, which is the whole point of why Trump put her in there.
Yeah.
Because the DNI has existed to whisper in the president's ear forever, just, this is what you need to do. It's like another, the DNI said it, the CIA said it, they're all in agreement. But if you have somebody in there that doesn't agree with a neocon foreign policy, this is a problem for the intel community. And let's be honest, man, like, I think we would be dumb to look, the way I look at it, these people that are tasked with regulating or oversight of the intel community, I think some of them are terrified of the intel community because of what they can do. And
so you think someone has had a private meeting with Tom Cotton here?
Chuck Schumer's the one that said it about Trump, and it all came true. You go after the intelligence community, they have 7 ways of Sunday to going after you. So, everything in our government is compromised in so many instances. Whether I was just talking today about the FDA, being owned by the dental industry that they're tasked to regulate.
I caught part of that on your show earlier.
So, the same idea. This is the idea. Tucker Carlson said it too. Like these people are terrified.
I've noticed as Schumer and Pelosi have gotten older, they've said I think they've accidentally said the quiet parts out loud. So that was one of them. Chuck Schumer. If you remember, Nancy Pelosi was talking about how you make it, you give validity to a story. She was trying to rail against it, but she opened up the Democratic's playbook, and that is, you leak out this information to a news source, and then they write a story about it, and then you come out and say, well, it's being reported that such and such and such and such. And it's like, okay, yeah, Nancy, that's exactly what you guys do on the left. And I'm sure that the right is guilty of it as well. But anyway, as they've gotten older, they've said this quiet part out loud, but it makes it, to me, it doesn't make it less true. It makes it more true or truer, because Chuck Schumer knows exactly. I mean, he's the Senate minority leader at this point, but he's been the majority leader. He has had tons of power, tons of briefing with these high-level people. And so when he's saying the intel community can go after you, he knows it.
Yeah.
He's seen it. Yeah. He's been in the meetings, and he's probably cowered in front of them.
The intel community probably sent Chuck Schumer to do that show and deliver that message.
That's exactly right. Like, hey, you might want to remind them about the power of the intelligence community at this point.
Yeah.
And what we like is these outsiders, right? We've got Tulsi, former Democratic presidential candidate, turned independent, turned Republican, turned DNI, right? The Director of National Intelligence. I mean, she has, what a progression that she has made. Former military, or still current military, is she? Or I don't even know if you...
Well, now I don't
at
think
this point, really, she's not. But anyway, while she was serving in Congress, she was still... I think she was a member of the military, the reserves. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Other than to say, she had an interesting resume, and I would not support any sort of curtailing of her power.
Not right now.
Yeah, no.
I mean, so that's what's so funny because look at this clip. This was because I think I had said earlier on this show, so at some point, I don't think Tom Cotton is a fan of Tulsi Gabbard, so I went to go try to find evidence of that in relation to the story of now they may be trying to take power away from her in the midst of her literally exposing not just Obama, but the Uniparty, people like Senator McCain and Lindsey Graham. So I went back and looked, and this is actually what you find. You find headlines like this, how Tulsi Gabbard's nomination came roaring back to life, and they credit Tom Cotton. And then Tom Cotton even said this.
I can only laugh at some critics who say that Ms. Gabbard has unconventional views. No doubt she has some unconventional views, like her criticism of Barack Obama's regime change interventions in Egypt and Libya. But guess what? I opposed the disastrous interventions in Egypt and Libya as well.
So he's saying, look, so he stood up for her to get her the nomination, and what Conservative Treehouse is pointing out is saying, look, he had to do that, but now it's like you get her in there, and now let's get rid of her. She's going to stay as a figurehead, but she's not going to be able to create her own intelligence. She's not going to be able to look and expose.
Yeah, it reminds me of so he put her in this position, right? It reminds me a little bit of my mother when she would get very upset at me when I was younger. She's like, "I brought you into this world, and I can take you out of it," right? And if Tom Cotton is like, "I brought you into this world, right? I revived your nomination, and boom, I can take you out of this, or at least I can curtail your power." Here, it may be a muscle flex, but it may not be him that's actually flexing that muscle. It could be some intelligence community members behind the scenes flexing that muscle through Tom Cotton. Regardless, I don't care who's doing it. I'm not in favor of it.
Yeah, I'm not either. I don't think the people of Arkansas would be in favor of this at all.
And it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, Paul, like a lot of folks have sort of theorized that Tulsi comes out with this bombshell to distract from the Epstein stuff, right? Like she timed it. But did she time it? Like this was 3 weeks ago that this act was posted right here. So you said it was June 27th, right? Yeah. So, roughly 3 weeks ago, almost a month ago. And now Tulsi comes out with this bomb. I wonder if she's doing that to say, whatever you're trying to do is not going to work, and boom, here, let me flex my muscles.
Actually use the power she has while she still has it, and then of course, let the base do the rest. All right, so we're about out of time, so we're going to cover one of three stories, and I'm going to give you, Rob.
What are my options here?
Your options are this Dave Chappelle thing about it's a TikTok video. Joe Biden's associates pleading the fifth. A local KARK story about a controversial ad that's been pulled from Benton billboard along I-30 corridor in Arkansas, or the United WNBA All-Stars wear "Pay Us What You Owe Us" T-shirts.
That's the one I choose.
Okay.
I choose that one because of the All-Star game that was this weekend. That is the one that I choose.
So just a real quick, they were wearing these shirts. I don't know if you can see them
during warm-ups.
Pay us what you owe us.
Yeah.
Rob, your reaction?
That is the most ridiculous BS that I have ever seen in my life. You ridiculous women. Okay? I'm going to tell you something. You can call me a male chauvinist. You can call me all you want to. You can say, "Oh, look at that guy," whatever. I'm 6'4", 260 pounds. I could not play in the NBA because most people in the NBA that are 6'4" are guards. Okay, I'm built more like a linebacker. Not going to play in the NFL either. Okay, I can tell you that. But I am an avid sports watcher, and I have been all of my life. And I can tell you, okay, you are paid what you are worth to the owner, to the league. That is what you are paid, okay? The WNBA, on average, in its existence, I falsely said last week that it had made $1 million last year.
Okay, well, there's a lot of people on our that they had a TikTok video,
yeah.
and some people were calling you out for that.
Yeah,
so I'm
they
good.
said, they said we have to have a license to.
Yeah, they were mad at us. They said
Yeah.
podcasting equipment should have to come with a license.
That's right. Yeah, podcasting equipment should have to come with a license. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Me too,
you know
me
what?
too.
Okay, but I can tell you this: they lose on average $10 million a year. Okay, then Caitlin Clark comes into the league. Now you can argue that she's not the best. I don't think that. I mean, based off the statistics, she's not the best player in the WNBA, but she is the most watched. She is the most dynamic in terms of her appeal from outsiders. People who have never watched the WNBA before are coming in, and they're coming into this viewership, and they actually care. They want to see Caitlin Clark highlights where she's pulling it from half court. She was incredible when she was in college, and she brought that dynamic to the WNBA. And people said when she was coming in that she's in for a rude awakening, and then boom, she comes out and she wins Rookie of the Year. And people were trying to say it was going to be Angel Reese. Like, watch Angel Reese play one stinking game. And
I'm fascinated that you know anyone else's name.
Those are the only two that I know. I know
I'm fascinated.
Diana Taurasi. This
do
is her, but she's been around forever and all this stuff. But you know, you got some legends, people that have been playing. Rebecca Lobo. You got all these people. Anyway, that's played. You know, she's now retired and she's an analyst. She's the one. Rebecca Lobo is the one that had to apologize for saying that's what makes America great and all that stuff. That's Rebecca Lobo. But she was a phenomenal basketball player. Here's my point.
Okay.
Do you know how much money the WNBA, with that increase in viewership and what I said, you know, last week, where they had to, if it's a 7,000 seat arena, and they've had to transfer it over to a 30,000 seat arena if Caitlin Clark comes into town, because you don't want to leave all that money on the table. You're going to sell out 7,000, but you're also going to sell out 30,000, right?
Yeah.
You want to leave that money on the table. Do you know how much money they lost last year? In her first season?
I do not.
$40 million. Do you know why? Because those players griped so much about having to fly Spirit Airlines that they're now getting chartered flights. Okay? So they're already losing money as a league. You want more of the men's money is what you want.
That's exactly right.
You want more.
The men, the power, man.
The men, the NBA makes billions of dollars a year, right? It makes billions of dollars a year, and it supplements your league. You better be thankful for that paycheck that you get every month, okay? You can gripe at me all you want to, come at me, try to cancel me, you can say what you want to, but your league lost $40 million. And then they're wearing shirts that say, pay us what you owe us. Know what? I'm gonna give you a bill. I'm gonna give you a bill. If you want to talk about what's owed, we lost $40 million. You better give your salary back, okay? Stop it with this crap. Is women's basketball exciting to watch sometimes? Heck, I mean, I enjoy. This camera's only on me right now.
No, I switched it.
Okay.
I want.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, listen, I'm going to send you some Caitlin Clark highlights because she's pretty dang exciting. Okay, and how she hit three-pointers when she came back from injury and hit three in like 43 seconds, something like that. It was incredible. Okay, but listen to me. Don't cut me off. I'm making my point.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay. You lost $40 million last year, and you choose this year, after you just had the biggest loss ever in the history of this league. You just, as far as I know, you just lost $40 million, and you want a pay raise? Shut up. Shut up. Play the game, keep building your audience, and then when I know that you're trying to renegotiate a collective bargaining agreement right now, I get it. But you need to take what you can get right now and kick that can down and continue to build up this league over the next few years, okay? Because until that league is profitable, you need to shut up.
Rob Spencer, everybody.
Rob Spencer.
Making the...
Cancel me.
I love it. I have to interject. I respect your opinion, but I would venture a guess that they aired the WNBA in hell. Because anytime I've tried to maybe I'm going to make them mad. I'm just saying, anytime I've tried to watch it, it does seem hellish to me to try to watch it. So.
No, listen. There's some really good women basketball players out there. It's just a different game.
Yeah.
It's just a different game with the NBA. It's kind of like if LeBron James were to go over into the WNBA and he says he's a woman now and all of that stuff. Would it be?
There's a great Chappelle bit about
Yeah.
that. So. All right, Rob, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for being the co-host and the great co-host that you always are, and we'll be back here and do it again tomorrow.
Honor to be here as always.
All right, folks, that's all the time that we have for this edition here on X America News. Make sure you go to subscribe to X America News, as well as follow me at Real Paul Harrell, at Rob Spencer 43, and at Paul Talk Show over on X, and follow us across platforms. Look for the Paul Harrell program, and I'll be back here unless I'm providentially handled. I'll be back here tomorrow at noon Central doing the Millstone Report. Thanks for watching.